Greetings and salutations. My name is Rein Tenebrae and welcome to my channel. Sketches of Lost Heirlooms, version 1.3 for Arknights Endfield, had its version experience survey posted, and I want to talk about it. To keep things simple, I'll go through it in the order it was presented. They started off with asking about our overall satisfaction with the game. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I'm still enjoying myself, but it's not perfect, which is why we're having this discussion in the first place. Then they ask about which aspects of the current version game experience we enjoy. And in my heart of hearts, I have to say I found very little joy from the current version. We'll get more into some of this later in the survey, but this event was the epitome of sparse. The only things I enjoyed from it were Camille's narrative event, Dance Macabre, Umbral Monument Contention of Deathly Silences, and partially the Contingency Contract event. Immediately after, they asked us which aspects of the game experience could have been improved based on the current version. And I checked a lot of boxes here. Voice acting, AIC factory gameplay, version content volume and update cadence, performance optimization and stability, rewards and benefits, cutscenes, cinematics, and dialogue delivery, basically everything. Because they care about money at least a little, they go on to ask us about our experience with headhunting and arsenal issue this version. I didn't engage with the gacha system this version at all. I didn't want Mifu, I didn't want Camille, because I didn't want them. I obviously didn't want their signature weapons either. Mifu was a strong character, sure, but decisions were made regarding her that I feel caused irreparable damage to my interest in this character. The first problem came with a racial designation, which is tied to a problem in 1.2 with Chuang Fang Yi as well. Many of us thought for sure Mifu would be a Kylin variant, even more so than her boss Chuang Fang Yi, but then they had an NPC randomly call her a Sarkaz in Shingo Stockade, and the waters got muddied. But then 7 years of foundational lore that Hypergriff wrote for the Sarkaz and Arknights, never once have they presented us with a Sarkaz that has a furry tail. There wasn't even a representative for this race in the TCAS mural. We really needed a dang good explanation for this, but come 1.3 in her playable release, and we didn't get it. We just officiated her as a Sarkaz and moved on with no explanation. I had hope her narrative event or supplemental files would shed some light, but nothing did. Not her own files, not the files of either of the weapons, nothing. Besides her racial designation, it's not mentioned once. After that is her typing. Her class and weapon was pretty expected. Between guard and defender, they picked guard. However, she once more falls into actually a striker, just like Administrator. The Greatsword was also expected. Unfortunately, her hyped-up gauntlet she'd been using all this time is now suddenly a rarely seen skill animation exclusive tool, which seems to be a trend with character combat design in this game that I'm not appreciating. Next is her type. Because of the particle effects of her gauntlet, it was considered certain she'd be either a electric or heat type, but instead they decided she needed to occupy the heavily saturated physical type. Mifu, I felt, was poorly introduced to the game. She does great damage and looks nice, and that's all she has going for me. On the other hand, the gear and weapons that were released for her make a great fit for other characters too, so that's nice. I want to bring up her narrative event briefly. It was pointless. We got a little backstory about how she joined Wu Ling, which is okay, but the giving her 3 masters and not even naming them is absurd. Camille is great from a lore standpoint. Unlike Mifu, he came into Arknights Endfield bearing respect for the 7 years of Sarkaz lore foundations from Arknights. He's not exactly particularly appealing for me to look at, though I reckon I'm not really the target audience in that regard, so that's perfectly acceptable. Surely he could have had a better outfit, but I digress. His skills and attack animations are excellent and fast in their presentation. His SP generation is alright for a Vanguard, but he lacks special sauce as a playable character for me. Something I had forgotten to put in my script here is what really makes him special is his vast array of buffs he provides for the teams he's in. Fits him all. And wouldn't you know it, all my investments for team building up until now have been for cryo, electric, and physical. Zero investment whatsoever in heat. Now, he is great in physical, but that requires Rossi, who I skipped. I did off-ban her 3 times from Chuang Fang Yi's banner later, but I never budgeted to build her. So her, Levitain, and Wolfguard are all sitting unbuilt in my roster. I did still thoroughly investigate him for the sake of writing his guide on Icy Veins, link in the description, but he simply wasn't in the cards for me. On the weirder side, for the first time, they didn't release new gear for this guy. They recommend older, not perfectly compatible gear from the Frontier set with inverted stats instead, inducing lower damage performances for the sake of a little extra ultimate speed. I found a different variation that gave him better baseline damage, but not having a more efficient set for himself was surprising. His weapons are only really usable by himself. No one else can use them to any effect. His voice lines did reveal that Vishdel came to Talos too, and that's extremely exciting. Neither of them had particularly attractive voice acting to me, but I do appear to be in a minority for this particular opinion. Next up, they ask about how we generally felt about the side mission, Deep Vaulted Steel, and its associated area, Sword Vault Dale. Because Dale is also a generally Western name, I will call both of these things Dale, and I don't like Dale. I have a lot of negative to say about this content that was practically the exclusive content of this update, and not much good to say. There's really no story to care about. In a meta sense, the narrative was meant to be a letdown. We start with Chen Qianyu, and later an archaeologist slash treasure hunter from the FDCC. I did not verify if that was the correct name, but I'll check that later. Hyping us up over the contents of Dale, including some secrets of swordmancy. This sharply hits a wall when we finally get there over some of the most annoying terrain I've ever endured in a video game. And it just has a compendium of cultural stuff that has come from Terra, but none of it is actually stuff we ever heard or saw about in Arknights itself. The best we got is Charney being referenced as helping supply some Lithanian music to the collection. Some people argue about who the 3 swordmancy masters are from the side quest to the side quest, but there's nothing to go off there either. They gave us this document that was almost entirely buried in black ink at the start of this too. It was about a group of influential individuals in Talos 2 agreeing to get this facility made. This is somewhat interesting yet still frustrating. They reveal a Silver Ash being present before Talos 2. Before on Talos 2. Perhaps the Silver Ash bloodline has been continued? I'd love to get me a Silver Ash character in Endfield. At any rate, we went on a treasure hunt that some characters culturally appreciated but ultimately had no bearing on the grand story. This could have even been fine if not for one thing. That's all this update was narratively outside of Camille's narrative event. The enemies were insignificant. I had to intentionally run over the innovative banana peel mechanic. Now's a good time to talk about rewards, because Grifflane tactfully decided to never ask about why or how rewards could be improved when we say they need to be. 1.3 gave even less pulls than 1.1, which was also pretty sparse. The losses in the permanent contents and events. We had fewer events to get pulls from. We didn't get an Etch Space Salvage update or Delver of the Cryptic update, and there were mostly lower quality chests in Dale. Update content is sparse. This reduction of content is where you can find how to improve rewards. Also, in general, rewards are very low. The AIC didn't really get an update exactly. We got some more materials to get, and that's about it. Dale was pretty annoying to route power through to get those materials, and I found the terrain annoying enough to not even bother setting up a zipline network after that, or even bother harvesting materials from this area at all, most of the time. The survey placed a big emphasis on wondering how we feel about wooling stock bills, how well we're getting them, and if we're buying what we want. I don't have a 100% efficient setup, and I'm buying out the shop every week, so I'm pretty plus-minus about it. They do seem to think it's impactful to character progression, which isn't completely wrong at the level 90 side of things. AIC shop is how we get etching permits and artificing permits, but has basically zero impact on any other facet of character progression. I say this while considering the fact you can get some one-time rewards at the start of each update whenever they give you the bump to your stock redistribution level. But outside of that, you can't keep getting those rewards end over end. Like Valley 4 is dead. Moving on, they ask us about Contingency Contract and Unborn Monument, the only 2 real content events of the update. I like Contingency Contract in some respects. I found the difficulty level of Risk 20 appropriate. I bowled through every mission for this Contingency Contract with a cryo team composed of Tong Tong, Last Right, Snowshine, and Zaihi. You were really meant to use heat and physical teams, but they didn't account for defenders just blatantly ignoring all the gameplay elements they'd seal away for the player. Can't dodge? Just block it, forehead. Also, it seems I completely forgot they created Estella, a free-ish 4-star character who has a talent for just disabling half the risks from actually doing anything when she's your active character. So, they did botch the difficulty a bit. However, it got quickly boring for me anyways, as they gradually released risk sets for us to clear for additional rewards from the event shop. And the rewards themselves were lackluster. This is because there was only one stage to this event, unlike the original Arknights, where you would have the main stage and then you'd have a cycling stage. And it had no variation. No risks changed what spawned, how many spawned, or what mechanics they had. Nothing, just general number inflation and player capability ceiling. So one very monotonous stage we had to engage with over and over again. A big reward element from Arknights is that it's a guaranteed 6-star character potential if you 100% the contingency contract content. That's not present in Endfield, just 2 pools and some progression materials. For Umbral Monument this version, it was actually very good in terms of challenge. It had all the engaging mechanics I would have hoped to see in contingency contract. Still just 2 pools and some build materials though. Trials of Swordmancy, it was pointless content. Came with a temporary event to get 2 pools. Meant to do it daily for some more stock builds, but it's a small amount that I can't really care about. Then, once again, they ask us about, do you like the Dijon resources? The answer is still no. It gives me 1 XP chip a day. I do not care. That was it for the survey, pretty much. I had plenty of thoughts for the text entry at the end, though. We need more narrative events for characters. They've been way too little with this. This update could have been vastly improved by adding a Chen Chanyu narrative quest, where she actually makes a relevant discovery to her quest in the Dale Archive. She wanted to find Chi Shao Swordmancy, and while martial instruction manuals weren't part of the records, you know what was part of the records? Movies. How is this relevant? A certain sweep proxy known as Nyan directed a movie in which Chen Huiche, Chen Chanyu's ancestor, took part and used her own Chi Shao Swordmancy for the movie's plot. While not directly a Swordmancy instruction, she'd have had visuals to work with and would have found connection to her Terran ancestry. We can have an Ember narrative event that doesn't include Administrator at all. It's just her banner with the Order of Steel Oath, and her sister banners playing through an event described in her file. ODST, or Helldiver, diving into the northern front to headhunt anchors. Remember those? They stopped being relevant in Chapter 2. To stem the tide of Agaloy. But all of her comrades got wiped out by the Agaloy threat they get codenamed High Tower, Ember's motivation for a rehab on Dijon. Oh, you didn't know this history about Ember, or why she's here? Read the supplemental lore. We can have a Chapter 2 of Wolfguard's narrative event where Rossi can join for a shared event where they go hunting down the new pack in their mysterious Alfarion. Give us more narrative events. You don't need to make administrator involvement a requirement for every one of these. Another problem I noticed a bit more recently is characters are extremely wooden outside of rendered cutscenes, or pre-rendered cutscenes. Breathe some life into these characters. They're all just kind of standing around and vaguely staring into space while talking to each other. Some of this got ranty, but it's all from the heart in my honest opinion. That pretty much summed up the survey in my review of this 1.3 version. Be sure to come by Friday for the More Sanity Required podcast with Automaton Zero, Renegade, Plus Minus, and Vernark, as we shift our focus to the future and discuss the 1.4 version Homecoming devlog. Thank you very much and have a nice day.